Hey friends, what's up? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Lamed Beis, Daf 32, Daf Lev, Daf Heart of Masechta Sukkah. The heart of Masechta Sukkah. That's very, very beautiful. What do they say that the lulav is like the spine, and the hadasim are like the eyes, and the aravos are the lips, and the esrig is like the heart. Well, the Maisa, we're not talking so much about the esrig today. Today we're talking about the wrapping up things with the lulav, right? So at the end of the Mishnah of lulav hagazel, we talked about some additional halachas, such as if it's clipped or spread out. We talk about the length, right, the size of a lulav, which is an interesting discussion. We'll see a machlokas there between Rav Dimi and Ravin about the size of a lulav, and really how to understand a machlokas with Tarfin over there. And then we get up to a new Mishnah, a Mishnah that discusses hadasim. Exactly what are the halachos, what are the requirements of hadasim, which is very interesting. So that's what's in store for today. We're going to start in Daf Lamed Aleph Mud Beis, 2 lines from the bottom. Niktam rosho, if the top of the lulav is clipped off, we said it's possible. Rav Huna lo shanu ela niktam, says Rav Huna. Now that's specifically if the top of the lulav is clipped off. Avo nizda kosher, if it's just split, then it's kosher. V'nizda kosher, is that really true that if it's split, it's kosher? V'atani, we're learning a brisa. Lulav kafuf, if you have a lulav that's bent over, kavutz, or it's barbed, I guess it's sharp, the sides are sharp. Saduk, if it's split. Akum doma lemago, if it's bent, that said it's like a sickle, like mamish all bent over. Pasul, in all those cases, it is taka pasul. No, so what's the deal? Wait, so what are we talking about? One second. Our Mishnah said that if it's niktam rosho, if the top of the lulav is clipped, it's a problem. To which Rav Huna said that that's specifically if it's clipped, but if it's split, it's kosher, it's acceptable. But we have a brisa that says that if it's split, it's pasul. No, what do? We're basically stuck, right? Mishnah says, Rav Huna says that the Mishnah implies that if it's split, it's kosher. We have a brisa that says split is pasul. What do? We're stuck. Charus pasul. So says the brisa that if you have a lulav that's very hard, so then it's pasul. Dom lecharus kosher. But if it's similar to being hard, okay, does that mean that it's not hard? All right, what do you want me to tell you? So then it's kosher. Amar Papa David kihemnik, babam. There you go. So Papa answers, how do we answer this question? That on the one hand it says that split is kosher, on the other hand it says that split is pasul. It depends. If it's split like a hemnik, I thought a hemnik was a pitchfork, but apparently it's like the letter Y. You ever seen the letter Y? It kind of starts with like a line, and then it splits off at the top in 2 directions. So if you have a lulav, you ever seen a lulav that's mamish split in 2 different directions? Probably not, because it's pasul, and we probably go for kosher lulavs. So, but if the top of the lulav was split and it looks like the letter Y, well then it's a pasul lulav. But if it just has like a little split at the top of it, that isn't necessarily a problem. We'll see soon that it might be a problem, depending on what the split looks like. Akum dom lamago, we said that if the lulav is bent so that it looks like a sickle, which is like a farming tool, well then it's pasul. So Amarava lo amarin elu lefanov, says Rava, that is only if it's bent like forward. Aval achor briyasahu, but if it's bent backwards, well then that's just like normal for it to be bent backwards. Rav Nachman says, Rav Nachman tzadin kilufanav dami, that if it's bent to its sides, it's the equivalent of if it's bent in front, i.e. pasul. V'amrila kilacharav dami, some taka say it's like it's behind, in which case it would be kosher. So sounds like it's not clear. V'amrava says, Rava, haylulva the salik b'chadhutza, b'amumu ufasul. Says Rava, if you have a lulav that all of its leaves are on one side of it, all right, it's stacked, all the leaves to one side, it's a mum, and it's pasul. All right, the mice go with the lulavs that go find some place where they're selling the arba minim, and most of the lulavs tend to be as far as I could tell, most lulavs tend to be more or less kosher. I mean, the esrog is where things get more detailed, but lulav, what do you need a lulav? Okay, make sure that all the leaves aren't on one side. You ever seen a lulav with all the leaves on one side? The ones that come in, generally, the leaves are on both sides. They're straight. The main thing you have to look for is the tiomes, which we're going to get to in just a minute. That's really the main thing, as far as I understand. That's really the main thing you got to look for in the lulav, is that the tiomes is intact, which it generally is. So now, nifritzu olav chulei. Amar papa nifritzu da'av ki chufya, meaning if the leaves of the lulav mamash fell off, so that you had to tie them back on, and it's like a broom, then it's a problem. Nifridu de'iparid aprude. But if they just got spread out, so they're not just tight against each other, they're more spread out, so then that's okay. Papa asks Akasha. Nechluka tiomas mau. Oh, so Papa asks, what if the tiomes is split? What's the tiomes? A tiomes is that at the top of the lulav, and this is I think the main thing that people look for, but also this is generally not an issue. But at the top of the lulav, there's two leaves that are stuck to each other. They're as if, does the Gemara say, or does Rashi say? I think maybe Rashi says, Rashi says, tiomes lefisha medubakim kiteomim. They're stuck together like twins. Basically, the lulav, you have the leaves on both sides of the lulav, and then at the top, there's two that are stuck to each other, right at the top of the lulav. So that's what's called the tiomes. If the tiomes is separated, is split open, so then that's a problem. That's really, I think, the main thing you have to look for in a lulav. You just look right at the top of the lulav to see if there are two leaves that are connected, which they generally are. They're stuck to each other, and then that's good. I believe if it's split like a tefach, which is also even if it's a little split, I think it's okay, though maybe that's machlokas. But I think lemaisa we say as long as it's not significantly split open, it's going to be a kosher lulav. So in most cases, I think the lulavs are generally fine. Just look at the tiomes. I think that's really the main thing you got to do. Make sure it's 4 tefachim, but it's always 4 tefachim. I mean, 4 tefachim is pretty small. So, anyways, fine. So where are we? Fine. So Papa asked Nechluka tiomes maus. What happens if the tiomes is separated? Tashma kamanir de Amr Rav Matun Amr Yeshua ben Levi nitla tiomes pasul. So it says Rav Matun and Rav Yeshua ben Levi that if the tiomes is missing, it's mamish gone, so then it's pasul. My love, hua de nechluka. So we want to assume that the same would apply to if it's split open, if it's separated. Right, so it says Rav Matun and Rav Yeshua ben Levi, if the tiomes is completely missing, both of those leaves have been severed off, it's possible. We want to say that the same applies even if they're there but they're split. So the Gemara says, "Lo nit l'shayni do'achosrele." So we say no. If it's mamish missing, that's a problem because then the lulav is missing a part of it. But if it's just split, it's actually okay. Ikad amr to those who say. So those who say no, actually, if the tiomes is split, then it's as though it's completely missing, and it is pasul. And that's lemaisa, I think, how we paskin, that if the tiomes is split open, so then it's a problem. Let's go weiter. Rabbi Yehuda Omer says, Rabbi Yehuda Tanya, Rabbi Yehuda Omer Mishum Rabbi Tarfin, says Rabbi Yehuda in the name of Rabbi Tarfin, kapos tamarim, okay, that we want, a lulav, but kapos is like kafus, which is tied, and my part yichaftenu, if the lulav gets the leaves kind of open up, so then tie them together. Amar Ravina Ravashi, mimaydai kapos tamarim de lulvahu. How do I know that kapos tamarim is what we refer to as the lulav? Ema charusa, maybe it's like some really hard palm thing, but kafus veleka. Well, we have to be able to tie it, and if it's super hard, so then it's what does that mean? That you can't? Yeah, because it's too. Yeah, I think if it's very hard, so then you won't. If they get separated, you won't be able to tie them because they're really hard. So that's not going to be good. Ve'ema ufta. Maybe I'll say it's like a log of the trunk of the tree or something, which is certainly going to be sort of flat and straight. Kafus muchadi kaparud by kafus vomit. No, we say no, that won't work because the trunk is never going to get separated. It's just like a trunk. It's not the lulav we have has different leaves that can get separated. So it can't be the really hard one, because then if they get separated, you're not going to be able to connect them since they're too hard. And if it's like a trunk, well, the trunk is never going to get separated in the first place. So you need what we refer to as the lulav, which has leaves which can get separated. If they do, you can bring them back together. Fine. Ve'ema kufra. Maybe I'll say it's palm shoots. Abai says you can't use these palm shoots because they're like prickly and stuff, and it says the pasuk in Mishlei that the ways of the Torah are very pleasant, and all of its paths are paths of peace, and therefore we don't want a kufra which is all prickly and unpeaceful and belligerent. We want beautiful, peaceful mitzvahs. Amr le'abai tosva le'ravina. Wow. So it says Rava, I don't know what I just said, but Amr le Rava Tosva le Ravina. Rava Tosva says to Ravina. Now, this book that I'm holding in my hand right now is a Gemara that I bought, I don't know. Actually, it's my brother's Gemara. Let's tell the truth over here. It's taka, not mine. I wasn't expecting to be in the United States for so long, so I actually didn't bring my own sukkah with me, so I ended up borrowing sort of commandeering my brother's. It's pretty much not mine now at this point. I mean, I wrote all over it and stuff, but I gave him mine. Anyways, but I have this other Gemara here that it was actually my Gemara, I don't know, maybe 15, 16 years ago when I was in yeshiva in Eretz Yisrael after high school. We learned Masechta Sukkah, and over there I wrote in the margin that Rava Tosva was the last Amora. I don't know where I would have gotten that from. Somebody told me that, but isn't that interesting? Rava Tosva was the last Amora. Who knew? Whatever. It's a good thing I have those notes. So Rava Tosva suggests to Ravina, maybe it means two like bundles of dates. Maybe it's not what we refer to as the lulav. Maybe it's like two bundles of dates. Kapasksiv. So Ravina said, yeah, but it's written kapas, which is singular. Be'machada. So we say, okay, fine. So one bundle of dates. That would kaf correlate. That would be kaf, not kapos. All right, what do you want me to tell you? Chevre, it's a lulav. That's what it is. The thing that we use, the lulav, that's what it's supposed to be. Viter and Shas. Tzine Arbarzel Kshere. Mishnah had said that what's called Tzine Arbarzel, these special palm trees, I guess, iron palm trees. All right, sounds fun. But what's interesting about these is that the leaves they don't lie upon one another. They kind of just, they're like much shorter leaves. Okay, so now, says Abaye that these leaves, right, this tzina har barzel, are acceptable if each leaf at least reaches the, bottom of the next leaf, right? So that's that. But aval, but if the leaf is so short that it doesn't even reach the bottom of the leaf above it, so then it's going to be a problem. That tzini ar barzel are psula, but didn't our Mishnah say it's taka kosher? It must be that it's taka like Abaye. That it depends. If the leaf is able to reach the next leaf, then it's kosher. If it's so short that it doesn't reach the next leaf, then it's possible. Now those who basically say the same halacha, but slightly different. They ask it in more of a question way, which is Tanan tzini ar barzel kosher. On the one hand, our Mishnah says that tzini ar barzel is kosher, ve'atanya psula. Yet we have a brayso that says it's possible. Amar Abaye says Abaye lo kasha kanche rosh hashanah magiyah l'tzad ikar shalzeh kanche ein rosh hashanah magiyah l'tzad ikar shalzeh. Says Abaye, it depends. If the leaf is able to reach the leaf above it, it's kosher. If it's it's so short that it doesn't reach the leaf above it, it's possible. Amr Marian, Amr B'Shua ben Levi, V'Amila Tani Rabba Bar Mari Mishum Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai Shtei Tmaros Yesh Begei Ben Inom. There are two palm trees in Gei Ben Inom. I think that's what? Is that like the valley between Yerushalayim and Har Hazeisim? And between these two palm trees there is some smoke. And that's what we're talking about, that tzini ar barzel is ksheris. What? That I guess the lulavs that come from these very fancy palm trees are ksheris. And as an aside, this is the entrance to hell. Wow. Interesting, right? The entrance to hell. I heard that the entrance to Gan Eden is in Maras Machpelah. That's what I was once told. Let's go weiter. Lulav sheyesh bo shlosha tfachim. Ooh, wah. So our Mishnah had said that if you have a lulav that has 3 tfachim in order to shake it, right? So the Gemara had says what this means is that 3 tfachim and enough in order to shake it, meaning 3 tfachim plus a shtickle more, so it's actually taka 4 tfachim. Let's go weiter. Wait, did the Gemara say that? Did we say that? Maybe we haven't said it yet. Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Shmuel says of Yehuda in the name of Shmuel, Shiur hados v'arava shlosha. So it says of Yehuda in the name of Shmuel that the size of the hados and the arava is 3 tfachim. The hadas and the arava have to be 3 tfachim. V'lulav arba'a, and the lulav needs to be 4 tfachim. Kidei she'lulav yotzim min hados tefach, so that the lulav extends past the hadas a tefach. Okay. So you have the hadasim and the aravis, and then you have the lulav, and the lulav is at least a tefach taller than the hadasim and the aravis. For Parnecham Rabbi Yochanan, shidro shalulav tzarich sheyetzeh min hados tefach. It says of Parnech, the name of Rabbi Yochanan, that the spine of the lulav needs to extend past the hados a tefach, meaning it needs to be a little bit more, meaning just the spine needs to extend past the hados a tefach. The leaves then that continue past the spine are going to be even more than that. So according to Rabbi Parnech, the name of Rabbi Yochanan, the lulav needs to be somewhat more than 4 tfachim. Just the spine needs to be 4 tfachim, and then the leaves kind of extend a little bit more than that. So Shmuel says 4 tfachim, Rabbi Parnech says the name of Rabbi Yochanan a little bit more than 4 tfachim. Fine. Tanan, we learn in our Mishnah, lulav sheish bo gimel tfachim k'dei l'naneh bo kosher. In fact, the Gemara, our Mishnah doesn't say anything about 4 tfachim for a lulav. Our Mishnah says that, what's the size of a lulav? 3 tfachim, so you could shake it. That's what it says. It doesn't say anything about 4 tfachim. No, what it means is that a lulav needs to be 3 tfachim plus a little something extra in order to shake it. Markedisle, Shmuel says 1 extra tefach, so 4 tfachim, and Rabbi Yochanan says just the spine needs to be an extra tefach plus whatever leaves are in addition to that, and that is all for the shaking. Okay, fine. Toshma, come in here. Shir hados v'arava shlosha. Okay, the size of the hados and the arava is 3 tfachim. V'lulav arba'a. And the lulav is 4 tfachim. Ma'alav b'hadei olin. So the Gemara wants to say that what does it mean that the lulav is 4 tfachim? With all the leaves, meaning gross, right? In total, the lulav is 4 tfachim. No, just the spine is 4 tfachim, but the leaves are in addition. Meaning, we wanted to bring it as a kasha against Rabbi Yochanan, who says that the lulav needs to be more than 4 tfachim, because just the spine is 4 tfachim, but the leaves are going to be more than that. But Rabbi Yochanan can just answer that, no, this brisa, when it says 4 tfachim, it means just the spine is 4 tfachim, but the leaves would be in addition to that. Gufa, we said earlier, shir hadas v'arava shlosha, okay, the size of the hadas and the arava is 3 tfachim. V'lulav arba'a, and the lulav is 4 tfachim. Reb Tarfon Omer says, Reb Tarfon, ba'ama bas chamisha tfachim, we're talking about an amma that is 5 tfachim. Now the Gemara wants to assume for now what this means is that Reb Tarfon is saying that actually the lulav and the arava need to be an amma. Not just 3 tfachim, but an amma, a 5 tefach amma. There's different size ammas, 5 tefach ammas, 6 tefach amma, I think there's 7 tefach amma. Rava says Rava, Sharale Mare Reb Tarfon. Oh my goodness gracious. Friends, do you hear this? Do you hear what's happening here? Rava, the, what is it, 4th generation Amora, is saying God needs to forgive Reb Tarfon the, 2nd, 3rd generation Tana? Crazy. I mean, Rava's fearless, right? Rava will take on anybody. But this is a chiddush. I mean, Rava is saying, may God help Reb Tarfon. Rava the Amora is saying, may God help Reb Tarfon the Tana. Wow. Cheved, this is big stuff. Rava Sharle Mari the Reb Tarfon. Rava says that God needs to help and forgive Reb Tarfon. Hashta avus shlosh lo mishkachinon bas chamishim ibaya. Rava says, I don't understand what Reb Tarfon is saying. It's hard enough for us to find hadasim that are 3 tfachim. He's saying that it needs to be in amma, that 5 tefach amma, 5 tfachim? Because as we're going to learn later on in the day, later on in today's daf, a hadas is actually the most complicated of all the arba'im. Well, the hadas and also the esrig, I guess. But hadas, I think, is probably more complicated than the esrig even, because, I mean, nowadays they kind of have it down to a science, so they're all just like the same, basically. So the esrig has the most variability at this point, I think. But the hadasim, as we're going to learn later in the day, it has to completely cover, right? You have to basically only see leaves, right? The hadasim, the leaves have to cover the entire branch. And also they have to be like literally all, I mean, imagine growing a tree to be perfect like this, right? That all the leaves have to be like on the same level. Rashi even says they have to come out from the same source. And 3 of them on each level and go all the way up the hadas. So it has to be entirely covered with leaves, all be like, you know, mamish, like coming out of the same place or like on the same height or whatever it is. Like, you have to grow the hadas like perfectly, basically. And therefore, Rava is saying, I don't understand, Reb Tarfon. It's hard enough for us to find hadasim that have 3 tfachim of this, like, very difficult to find, you know, leaf configurations. Reb Tarfon, you're now saying that we have to increase it to 5 tfachim? That's nuts, says Rava. Right? Right? So it says, Amar Rava, Sharle Marad Reb Tarfon. God needs to forgive Reb Tarfon. Hashta Avu Shlo Shalom Meshkechinon. It's hard enough for us to find hadasim that are kosher, that are 3 tefachim tall. Bas Chamisha Mibaya, now you're going to make us search for hadasim that are 5 tefachim? And still kosher? Right? If you walk around outside, like in Nachlaot, there are some hadasim trees. If you walk around and find hadasim, those are not going to be kosher for your lulav. A regular hadas tree, I mean, the leaves are just random leaves. They're like, I don't know, they just grow like regular branches grow, not perfectly. But our hadasim already nowadays, I think they basically figured out how to like grow them perfectly for lulavim. But anyways, it's not so simple to find a hadas that's going to grow perfectly. Kasser Rav Dimi Omar, so Rav Dimi came and he explains what's going on. Ama bas shisha tfachim asay oso bas chamisha. Says Rav Dimi, what this means is that no. What Rav Tarfon is saying is not that you need the hadasim to be an amma. He's not saying that. Rav Tarfon is saying that hadasim need to be 3 tefachim. However, the tefach that we're talking about is a bigger tefach. Meaning, generally an amma beinonis is 6 tefachim. So let's say you would take that same amma, we're talking about the same size amma, but instead of 6 tefachim in there, you would divide that same distance, that same length, into 5 pieces. So basically you divide up, so meaning if you have this fixed length, that normally you would divide into 6 sections, and now you're going to divide the same length into 5 sections, so you're going to have to take that 6th section and basically divide it up 5 ways and split it evenly among the other 5 parts. So now each 5 part each part is now 1 1/5 of what each part was originally, right? So meaning if you'd have this fixed length and you divide it into 6 pieces, but then you say, no, actually let's divide it into 5 pieces, so each individual piece is going to be 20% larger than each piece was the first time around. So basically what happens is these tfachim, so Reb Tarfon is just saying, no, the hadasim need to be 3 tfachim, but not sort of 6 tefach to an amma tfachim. We're talking about 5 tefach to an amma tfachim, meaning 1 and 1, 20% larger than the other, than the, I guess, standard Benoni tfachim. And therefore, so it says Rav Dimi, what Reb Tarfon is saying is that the hadasim need to be 3 tfachim, but we're talking about 3 of these larger tfachim, so basically 3 3/5 of the, so whereas the initial tfachim, we would assume were just regular tfachim, these are tfachim that in the end the hadasim would have to be 3 3/5, if you're using sort of regular tfachim. So, Kyosar Rav Dimi, when Rav Dimi came, Amar, he said, Amma bas shisha tfachim, take an amma that is 6 tfachim to the amma, and now asay osa bas chamisha, and take that same fixed length, but now divide it into 5 parts. Semein shlosh lahadas, and now take 3 of those tfachim for your hadas. V'ashar the lulav, and then whatever amount you need for the lulav. Kama havalu. So how large are your hadasim going to be? Tlasa v'tlasa chomshay. 3 tfachim plus another 3/5, right? Because you add another 1/5 for each tefach. Kasha de Shmuel. But then the Gemara says, 1 second, but now we have a kasha of Shmuel onto himself. Hacha amar Rav Yehuda amar Shmuel shir hadas v'arava shlosha. Because over here, Rav Yehuda said the name of Shmuel that the size of the hadas is the hadas and the arava is 3 tfachim. Yet, v'asam amar Rav Huna amar Shmuel alacha kreb tarfin. But Rav Huna says the name of Shmuel that the alacha is a kreb tarfin, which means that it's not 3 tfachim, it's 3 3/5 tfachim. Lo dak. So the Gemara says, meh, when Rav Yehuda says the name of Shmuel that a hadas needs to be 3 tfachim, he wasn't being particular. It's technically 3 3/5, but he called it 3. I'll say 1 second, I'll say that, okay, we could just be, round stuff off, I guess, to be more stringent, but not to be more lenient, meaning Shmuel can't just say, we'll call 3 3/5 3. But in the end, you're going to end up using a hadas that's 3 tfachim tall when it really needs to be 3 3/5, which means that it's a pasul hadas. You can't just say, we're not being exact, which is going to lead to a leniency, which is going to be pasul. So Kiyasa Ravin, when Ravin said, Omar, he said, Ama bas chamisha tfachim ase osa shisha. So it says, Ravin, actually, the way it works is the opposite way. We're talking about a Ama that was 5 tfachim, and then take this same Ama and now make it 6 tfachim. So basically take these 5 portions and divide them into 6 portions, which basically means, right now, the easiest way to understand this is that, meaning we're talking about the same Amma, just instead of 5 parts to the Amma, divide it into 6. And that's the tfachim that we're talking about, right? Meaning, right, if you take this Amma, so whereas you would divide it into 5 parts, now divide it into 6 parts. And those are the tfachim, and each part represents a tefach, and those are the tfachim that you're going to be using for your lulav. Now, there are 6 tfachim, and the hadasim, the aravos, so there are 6 tfachim in this amma, right? So 3 tfachim, which is the size of the arava, is going to be half of this amma, right? So now we're saying, and now, when, so what Reb Tarfon is saying is that the tfachim that we're talking about, when we say 3 tfachim, so we're talking about if you were to take this amma with 5 tfachim in it and make it 6 tfachim, those are the tfachim that we're talking about, which means of the original tfachim, we're talking about 2.5 tfachim of the 5 tefach ones, right? So basically, what we're saying is, it's actually a leniency, right? That Reb Tarfon is actually saying that all you need is 2.5 tfachim, as opposed to 3 full tfachim, right? And therefore, when Shmuel says 3 tfachim, he's actually not being specific, right? Because Reb Tarfon is saying technically, actually, you don't need 3 tfachim, you just need, Reb Tarfon is saying you just need 2.5 tfachim. And when Shmuel says the halacha is like Reb Tarfon, but he also says that the halacha isn't that you need 3 tfachim, he's not being exact. Really, all you need is 2.5 tfachim. And Zeo, he's saying 3 because it's, I guess a rounder number, but it's okay because he's just being machmer anyways. Also, Ravin, Omar, he says, Amma bas chamisha tfachim, if you take an Amma of 5 tfachim, I say, Osa shisha, make it into 6 tfachim, and then use 3 of those, which is basically 2.5 of the first tfachim. Semein shlosh hadas, then you take 3 of those for hadas, v'ashar the lulav, and then also take whatever you need for the lulav. Kama havelu trei ufalga, that's 2.5 of the original size tfachim. Sof kasha the Shmuel, it's still kasha of Shmuel because initially he says 3 and now he says 2.5. Lo dak, this is where we say he's not being specific. V'hainu l'chumra, lo dak, we say he's not being specific to be stringent, to say that you need 3 tfachim, even though all you really need is 2.5 tfachim, which is okay. Because Rav Huna says the name of Shmuel, that the halacha is like Reb Tarfon. Okay, fine. A little bit confusing there at the end, but alright, what do you want me to tell you? So Shmuel says that by the hadasim and the aravis, all you need is 3 tfachim, but technically speaking, all you really need is 2.5 tfachim. Alright, fine. Sounds good to me. New Mishnah, hadas hagazul v'yovesh pasul. If you have a hadas that is stolen or dried out, pasul. Shelasher v'shelir nidachas, pasul. If it comes from an asherah tree or from a condemned city that they were all doing avodah zarah, pasul. Niktar motion, if it's olav, if the top of the hadas is clipped off, or if the leaves fell off, or if there were more berries on the hadas than the leaves on the hadas, pasul. In all these cases, the hadas is pasul. V'miaton kosher, but if you just get rid of the berries, then it's kosher. But just don't get rid of the berries on Yom Tov. Okay, so if on Erev Yom Tov you see that your hadas has too many berries on it, just get rid of the berries, and then you have a kosher hadas. Givaldik. Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught onof eitz ovis. Okay, the pasuk says that you take this branch, onof eitz ovis. Shanof of chofines eitzo. You need its branches to cover its tree. Okay, I guess that apparently the branches kind of come out of the tree, and all the branches are covered up with leaves, and it's all just one big leaf show, I guess. Beizeh hu haveomezeh hadas. That's the hadas tree. Okay, you got these branches, and they're just all covered with leaves. All right. These woven kind of leaves, these braided leaves, because they kind of one on top of the other kind of. I'll say maybe it's a olive tree, because that also has a lot of leaves, I guess. Yeah, but you need them to be braided, and in an olive tree they're not braided. Maybe I'll say it's a chestnut tree. Even though that's braided, but apparently there aren't enough leaves to kind of cover the tree, so that doesn't work. You need the hadas. Ve'ema hirduf. What about it? Maybe it's a hirduf. Abai says, well, the pasuk says that the ways of the Torah are very pleasant, and this hirduf is spiky and stuff, so it's not pleasant. Rav says from here, that the truth and the peace they love, which I guess is not the case by a hirduf. All right. Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught. It's crazy to get this at the end of the daf because this is such an important Gemara. But Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Kalua kmin kliya v'doma l'shalsheles zeu hadas. So the rabbis taught that the hadas needs to be braided like a braid and be like a chain. That's the hadas. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, Omer says, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, Anof eitz avos, eitz shetam eitzo for yoshave, havi omer ze hadas. Says Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov that the Anof eitz avos is that it's a tree that its fruit and its tree taste the same, and that's a hadas. We of course have also seen that in the context of peppercorns, but okay, that's the hadas. Tana, we learn in the Brisa, eitz avos kosher, v'she'eno avos pasul. The hadas needs to be braided, and if it's not braided, it's pasul. Heichi dami avos. What's this braiding? Amr Rav Yehuda says of Yehuda, b'hu dekaima tlasa taife bikina. So Rashi explains this as meaning that you have to have 3 leaves coming out of the same source. Which I think that we don't, our hadasim don't usually have that. They just have 3 leaves coming out of the same sort of height, the same place on the branch, the same height of. They come out from the same kind of height on the branch, but they're not necessarily coming out of the same source. That's really hard to find, I think. Rav Kahana Omar says, Rav Kahana afilu trei v'chad. Rav Kahana says you can even have 2 leaves coming out from one source and then another leaf from below it that's kind of covering it. Rav Acha Brei Derava Mahadar Atrei V'chad. Rav Acha Brei Derava would dafka go, try to find the Rav Kahana version, which is 2 leaves coming out of one place and a 3rd leaf kind of from below it covering the other 2. Hov Nofik Mupumi de Rav Kahana, since Rav Kahana mentioned it. Omele Marbar Amema de Rav Ashi Ablau Hadas Shota Karile. So Marbar Amema says to Rav Ashi that his father would actually call Rav Kahana's description of a hadas a foolish hadas, a hadas shote. So therefore, I guess that wasn't necessarily what we wanted. Yeah, okay, look, when it comes to hadasim, so the hadasim are already more, you can really look at the hadasim and make sure that they're kosher, but they kind of have it down to science, I think. But the hadasim you do want to take a look at and make sure that you have, I think generally we don't necessarily have 3 leaves coming out of mamish the same place. That's going to be hard to find. But I think generally we have 3 leaves kind of coming out of the same sort of part of height of the branch, and they kind of cover the whole branch. That was daf lamed beis of Masechta Sukkah. Yeah, it got a little bit involved over there, particularly I guess at the end. The first part of the daf, we were wrapping up discussions of lulav. We're talking about if it's like bent in different ways, if it's like a sickle, or if the leaves are like, split a little bit. We said that is fine, but if it's like a pitchfork, if it's like mamish, the letter Y, then it's going to be a problem. We talked about the tiomes, that generally we assume that with the tiomes are the top two leaves at the top of the lulav, they have to be stuck to each other. If they are separated, so then apparently there's two ways to understand it, but I think we generally assume that we want to make sure that the tiomes is connected, is closed. Fine. Okay, beseder. We discussed the right, that the lulav has to mamash be a lulav and not something else. All right. We discussed the lulav being 4 tvachim, right? The hadasim, the ravos are 3 tvachim. The lulav is 4 tvachim. There's a machlokes there between Shmuel, who says that the lulav needs to be 4 tvachim, and Rabbi Yochanan, who says that just the spine needs to be 4 tvachim. The leaves should even be a little bit more than that. And then we saw Reb Tarfon's opinion, which is that actually you need the height of the hadasim and ravos not just to be 3 tvachim, but first he says actually 5 tefach amma, to which Rava says that's crazy. How could we require an amma for hadasim? They're so hard to find just kosher hadasim in the first place. We had two opinions of how to understand Reb Tarfon. The first is Reb Dimi, who says that no, actually what Reb Tarfon is saying is that the hadasim need to be 3 tvachim, but 3 larger tvachim, right? Which is really 3 3/5 tvachim, which we said can't really make sense because Shmuel says that you only need 3, when Shmuel also holds like Reb Tarfon. And how can he say it's only 3 when really you need 3 3/5? So Ravan said no, actually it means that if you take an amma that 6 tvachim fit in, and then you kind of make them into 5 tvachim, which would mean that no, or was it the opposite? No, you take one that starts with 5, then you kind of make it into 6, and it's those, and then you would use half of that, which is basically 2.5 of the original tvachim. Basically, all you need is 2.5 tvachim, according to Shmuel. And when he says 3, it's just not being accurate, which is okay. And at the very end, we got to a new Mishnah where we discussed the hadasim, and we basically said that the hadasim are what we refer to as hadasim. And what's interesting about the hadasim is that they need to be like braided up the whole branch. And Rashi says that you're going to have all 3 leaves coming out of mamash the same point. But I believe that generally we don't hold like that, and that we just need 3 leaves coming up from the same sort of height of the branch. But they would still be braided and covering the entire tree. Chaver, that was Daf Lamed Beis. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a great day. Cheers.